Yeah, nice.
And so I was trying to play a little sports. I loved baseball.
You're a baseball guy?
Yeah, I love baseball.
What was your position?
I was kind of wiry, so people would either put me at second base or shortstop or something.
Oh, okay.
I really wasn't interested in pitching, and I didn't want to be a catcher because you always got your butt run over by the big mooses.
Yeah, right.
Trying to guard home plate, and that's where I ended up playing. But I remember we'd finished the game, and I was going to friendlies for something, and this guy with like a leather jacket and his long black hair comes running out like the devil is after him, and it's the manager, and he's like, "You come back here!" And it was Coven.
Oh, really?
And I didn't realize until the semester started that he played bass.
Oh, really?
And so right away we said, well, let's start a band. And we probably weren't very good.
How old were you then?
This is between 9th and 10th grade.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Right.
What would that be, 14?
Yeah,
15?
right. Yeah, somewhere there.
So I met Coven.
16, maybe.
And there was a guy in our hometown named Bruce Smith, who was just a ridiculous guitar player. And
what do you mean ridiculous? Like
ridiculous,
talented?
like really good.
Okay. Good ridiculous.
Yeah, some people will say that it's a slam against somebody if you say they sound like somebody else, but you have to consider the skill it takes to sound like somebody else authentically.
Yeah.
And Bruce played guitar like Hendrix. We were essentially a Hendrix cover band.
Okay.
And which was fine by me because I was already a big Mitch Mitchell fan.
Right.
Was another one.
Yeah.
Because he was doing stuff that no one was doing commercially and being able to get away with it, like playing a 6/8 feel on a pop song,
right?
Or they'd be playing like "Hear My Train A-Coming," and he's doing like this Latin backbeat behind it, all kind of things that people just would not allow today in the industry. So we started this kind of Hendrix cover band on whatever was current at the time. Do you remember Focus? They did that song.
Sure.
Focus.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
The yodeling dude. So we did that, and we did some.
There's a great drum in that too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that would keep you busy.
Yeah, and some Doobie Brothers and all kind of stuff.
Gotta love the Doobies.
We did those in more ways than one. And sorry.
A time gone by.
Yes. So we started playing dances and that type of thing.
Sure.
And I met some other guys who, again, brought me to a whole nother dimension because they were all listening to Miles.
Oh, yeah.
And Coltrane. I never forget, one of his guys' house, and he put on Coltrane live in Tokyo.
Oh, yeah.
And
I have that. That's a great album.
Extremely free, though. And I'm sitting there for like 5 minutes. I'm going, so when are they going to start? Because I thought they were just warming up. It was so loose.
Really?
I had no idea that they were just
They were actually into it.
Yeah, improvisational.
Yeah.
But when I started listening to particularly what Tony Williams was doing with the Miles band at that time, a great band, Wayne Shorter, Ron Carter, Herbie Hancock, Tony and Miles. It just blew my mind again, and I said, that's what I want to do. That's really playing.
Right. Jazz.
Yeah. Oh, boy. What amazing times, because everything was new.
Yeah.
Every nuance was like something I just never thought to play
jazz
before.
is so all over the place. There's so many styles, so many nuances. I mean, everything. It's just too much to... what did you settle on? I mean, any particular grooves?
Well, I listened to a lot of Miles's kind of mid to late 60s stuff, like his Nefertiti album and Miles Smiles and some other things.
Right.
They were just all incredible. Miles live in Europe. Anything that was Miles, I wanted to listen to.
Right.
And, I mean, Tony Williams to me was everything. But there's always phases of... I'm sorry.
No, just turn your mic down just a little.
Just a little bit?
Yeah, because it'll point towards you better.
Okay, see, I'm a
Give
newbie.
it a twist.
I'm a newbie.
There you go.
Is that better?
That's much better.
All right, I'm a newbie to all this.
No, you're doing good.
Every time, like I said, I felt that I had found the epitome, I would find something else that took me in a whole other direction.
Okay.
So after going through the Miles and the R&B before that and the rock and stuff, it's just about the time when, for lack of a better definition, sort of this funk fusion, whatever, started coming out.
Right.
So first,
like Weather Report kind of stuff, you mean?
Well, yeah, maybe fusion's not the right word. I'm thinking of like Tower of Power.
Oh, okay.
You know,
somebody big sound,
but that very syncopated West Coast type of drumming. You know, David Garibaldi.
Oh,
when
Garibaldi.
I heard him, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
How on earth do you do that?
Yeah.
And on the heels of that, Herbie started with his Headhunters band.
Right.
And there was this skinny-looking guy with a mustache named Mike Clark.
Yeah.
Who was playing this sort of, I think they used to call it boogaloo.
Really?
Now, the West Coast kind of boogaloo style, but it's sort of a linear 16th note kind of feel thing.
Yeah.
And he was taking it to places that I just thought were, to use what we started with, inconceivable. It was just amazing the way he could phrase those 16th note stickings that he was doing, along with the rhythm sections. It was just such a time of revelation to me. And it all, you asked me, you know, so what did I decide on? I kind of decided on all of them. I said, you know, I want to do all that stuff.
So what do you do when you decide on all of it?
Well, you say, I have to get serious.
Berkeley.
You have to get serious. So, well, first I got a teacher.
This is still while you're living out on Great Neck?
Yes.
Okay.
And I took a few lessons because I needed to make sure that my technique was right. I was all self-taught. I'm sorry if I'm going back and forth, but I know
that's good.
He's no longer with us, but I have to give a shout out to a guy named Bruce Denton. Bruce lived in the old neighborhood that I lived in. He was an older guy, you know, one of those Fonzie types in that, you know, he was one of the coolest guys in the neighborhood.
Cool cat.
You know, cool with the ladies. He could play great b-ball.
Right.
And he was a phenomenally gifted drummer. And we used to have the ritual. And the ritual was every Saturday I would go up to his house and we would listen to King Curtis live at the Fillmore.
Oh, yeah. With
Bernard Purdy on the drums.
Really?
And just listen to fatback drums. And he would say, he called me Smith, you know, this is, you know, this is it. You know, this is, if you want to play soul music, this is the cat you have to listen to.
Right.
And of course, my rebuttal is, well, what about this Billy Cobham guy?
Yeah, right, Billy's.
You know, I mean, you know, because at the same time we were listening to that, Mahavishnu just came out with their first album.
Oh, okay.
And we're listening to the Bernard Purdy, and I'm like, yeah, but what about this? You know, Intermounting Flame. I mean, what do you make of that?
They're forgetting all that.
So anyway, I sidebarred on that because I was around a lot of self-taught people. And in terms of getting serious, I said, okay, I've got to get some lessons. I need to make sure I have some semblance of technique. I didn't know how to really sight read, which was a hindrance. And so I got a teacher, and then I decided, well, see, it's interesting. I was kind of torn between music or going into computers, such as they were then.
Oh, yeah?
And so the
early days.
Yeah, early, more mainstream.
They still had the reel-to-reel computers.
Reel-to-reel. Yeah. And my junior high had a computer that took up about at least half a room. It only did BASIC, and that was the joint.
Oh, yeah.
You typed in, and your output came out in these little reels of paper, and it's so archaic by today's standards. But I was really taken by that as well.
Okay.
And so I was trying to decide between Lehigh, because at the time their computer science program was well thought of. It probably still is, but back then it was like, well, if you want to do that, you know, consider Lehigh. It was either that or Berklee College of Music, and Berklee won out. So actually, Randy and I both went, and some other folks from town also went to Boston, but they ended up going to New England Conservatory. So there was a bunch of us around, basically all learning together and working from time to time in bands. But Berklee was just incredible. I ended up hanging around as much as I could Gary Chafee, who was not a teacher there anymore. But Alan Dawson had just left. He was, I guess, the head of percussion at the time. And Gary was in that chair. And Gary was working on a series of books called Patterns, which was mapped out all of that West Coast boogaloo type of sticking stuff that I was really interested in.
Yeah.
And he was very musical, but he was very technical.
Mm-hmm.
And so he taught us how to use unusual rhythmic groupings, fives and sevens and all these types of things,
mm-hmm.
in order to just play a regular 4/4 groove. It was just amazing. I camped by his door and actually listened to him giving a lesson to other students to rip off whatever I could get from him. And I just had such a marvelous time there,
right.
absorbing everything I could, and started to make some friends with other drummers and some
mm-hmm.
other musicians.
Right.
And finally, I started gigging around town. There was an older son. He probably played alto and tenor sax. He was a funny guy. His name was Lester Parker.
Oh yeah.
It's a stage name.
Okay.
He was the first guy that came by and said, "Hey kid, you want to play with me sometime on a gig?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure."
Right.
And he was really into Sonny Rollins. So it's kind of funny to say, but we were sort of a Sonny Rollins cover band. We did a lot of that kind of thing. And that was really my first exposure to playing jazz,
right.
on a regular basis for money.
Okay.
And prior to that, by the time I left high school, we were regularly playing, dances.
Okay.
But not jazz.
Oh yeah.
We were playing top 40.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to dance to jazz.
Yeah, pretty
kind of. You can.
But it didn't.
You need extra soul funk.
You need something. But we played a lot of dances and functions and stuff like that before I graduated, but nothing really for jazz. I went to Berkeley really for the jazz.
Right.
Because it was just, I found it wasn't something that I could just learn on my own.
Yeah.
The techniques and such.
It's almost like that's the place where everybody who became somebody went.
It seems that way.
Yeah. I could be wrong, but that's the way it seems. I mean,
a lot of phenomenal people have gone through there,
mm-hmm.
and I feel almost like I'm the if there was a yearbook, I'd be like the one that kind of didn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
In that, a lot of people that I went to school with have gone on to just do phenomenally in the business. Kevin Eubanks, who was on the Jay Leno show, used to play with him at least in school. We didn't gig a lot together, but
mm-hmm.
We would play together, just jam in the ensemble rooms. Ralph Moore, who was in that band, he was my roommate for a while.
Right.
Jeff Watts went to school when I went there, and he went on with Winton and some other people.
Uh-huh.
All kind of amazing folks were there. In fact, Steve Vai was there.
Really?
When I was there. Yeah, Steve Vai, God bless him, he got me an audition with Zappa.
He got you an audition with Frank Zappa?
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Okay. Steve.
I love Frank.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. Steve was just a phenomenal talent.
Mm-hmm.
He had a gift for transcription. That's kind of how he got his foot in the door with Frank.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I remember. You remember the band UK?
Oh, sure.
With Eddie Jobson.
Yeah.
Steve had transcribed like Presto Vivace or some ridiculously complex little ditty that
which Frank loved doing.
And what he did was they played at the Performance Center in Berkeley, and I think Steve, if I got the story right, Steve approached Eddie after and said, "Look, and Eddie was suitably impressed,
mm-hmm.
and somehow Steve ended up as a transcriber for Frank, and then started performing with him on stage."
Oh yeah.
And during that time, I guess Terry had left the band to go with a variety of people. He ended up forming Missing Persons.
Right.
And Vinny Colaiuta had played with Frank for a while, who's another one of my favorites. Vinny's just insane.
Yeah.
And Vinny left,
mm-hmm.
and they were looking for a drummer. And it's certain things I remember with such clarity. I was listening to a Chick Corea album,